Hello there, people on the internet. This is Shadowgear635 here, doing a review of Shadowgear. If you can hear the crickets chirp in the background. So yeah, here's the big guy. Here is the namesake. Here is Shadowgear, not my main self-mock at the time. Shadowgear, as a character, was like the brother or the rival, I never really fleshed it out, of Toa Shadow. And then Shadow maimed him and injured him to a point where he couldn't really sustain his normal body. And then he was remade by this medic guy, and he was turned into Shadowgear. And then at some point he gave himself a giant Titan-sized upgrade. And then, yeah. And then later on I turned his colors from having a black upper body to a lower silver body. Because, he's got silver pants and gray body. Whatever. I like that look. And then I'm going to get into this later on, but then he decided to make a robotic body of his older body. I'll get into that another time. So yeah, here's Shadowgear. I don't know how long this review is going to be, because I want to go a little bit more into detail with this guy, because he's an important character. He's not considered my self-mock anymore, but I want to go into detail about him. And why I liked him so much. And why I think, to this day, he's the best Titan-sized mock I've ever made for a mock that's realistically, maybe 3-4 years old? So let's move down to the feet, zoom that out a little bit so we can get a bit more detail. Well, not detail, but more room for my hands to kind of flop around. So, with the recolor, you can tell, silver pants, black body. I decided to keep his feet gunmetal, for the most part. The clawed feet here are a leftover from the smaller original version of Shadowgear I had, where he had those clawed feet. And I kept it on this version, because, why not? On the back of the foot, he's got the gears, very nice for the heels, makes him not incredibly stable, because, he's not the most solid mock in the world, but his legs are friggin' stable. By which you can tell, the backs of these legs have 3 pistons! 3 pistons, which, let me tell you, this on top of something else makes this mock, his arms are kind of floppy, at least from the elbow down, but the rest of him, pistons all around. But, in terms of articulation with the foot, everything that needs to work still works. He's still got ankle tilts. And his foot can still move in and out. And that is thanks to the pistons, and that's why I put them there, because I knew! Younger me was this guy's gonna be hella heavy. So I need to give him really sturdy ankles. And you know what? I did it, and it worked. And the lower leg here, you know what? It's okay. I'm not blown away by it, but everything, maybe I would change these to a Nika armor instead, but maybe it just wouldn't look right. Having this silver slicer head here, I think is a very nice touch, and the Borak eyes definitely add that nice kind of streamlined look to the lower leg that the upper leg does not have. But, nice little knee plate there, I think it looks very nice. I don't know why I kept these back feet, these back modded feet gray. I guess maybe the idea of why not? No one's going to look at the back all that much, so I'm not going to worry about it. Which, if you can tell, that's kind of a theme with Shadowgear, and we'll definitely get up to that when we talk about the upper body. So, I just realized something was unplugged on him. That's not good. And now it's plugged back in. So, there's that, and if you bend the knee... Yeah, let's move that back up. Let's move that up. Move it on up. He's got about a 90-degree bend. You can't really get any more out of it. He can get a bit of a bend that way if you want to pop that piston out. Good example, do this now. If you can hear that ratchet, it's very soft ratchet. That's because of the gears in the knees, or on the sides of the knee. This was a complete accident when I was working on Shadowgear. To where, ooh, something's not right. There we go. Everything's right with the world. Having these quarter-sized, American quarter-sized type of gears, they didn't fit, but when I bent the knee, it would make it hard to bend the knee. And I took that, I can't take that plate off to show you, I'm sorry. These soft little gears here rub up against the upper leg, and it makes the knee joint a lot stronger, which I don't think it really needs. Like, the backs of the legs here, just having these pistons, I think works out, but it's an extra little bit of stability that I think really helps with this guy. And then the upper legs, they're not... They get the job done. I could stand to have made the upper legs a little bit more streamlined like the lower legs, and make them look a little more sleek and a little bit more nice, and I just realized this isn't focused. Now you are. But there's some nice details here, like using the Nike armor here on this side, but not on the inward part of the leg, because I think it would look a little bit more awkward. You know, there's no thigh gap. Well, there's a giant gap here. We're not going to talk about that. But that works. And the back of the leg has got little spinny gears, which don't add to a single thing, but they're there. So, now for the waist, which is probably the thing I'm the most proud of with this MOC, and it's the first time. I already reviewed Titan, and I showed what I did with his waist. This was the first time I ever tried doing something like this, where the leg can go out, but there's an extra piston there helping it stay. And if you can tell, this is a pretty heavy leg, and this leg can still, like, it flops a little bit, but it can still stay up. Like, it's a sturdy leg, man, because I used the piston. And not only does it add stability, I think it adds this nice triangular shape to kind of make the waist look like that. And it's got little pads here that I think look really nice. They flop around, obviously, for articulation's sake. And they get the job done. You flip them up, you can tell it's that triangular-looking Technic piece. I'm going to pull out the crotch here. Ooh, can I do it safely? Can I do it safely? Yes. It's that piece kind of holding everything together. And then you add this back on. Ooh, there we go. By the power of yes. And then his butt, you can tell what's going on a little bit more. The piece up here holding everything together is kind of that, at the time, that's when it first came out, was the triangular triaxle piece. You can kind of tell it's connected. If you don't know what I'm talking about, sorry. But, yeah, it works. And it gives the leg a lot more stability in the waist. And, again, for a MOC like this, if you're making Titan-sized MOCs, that's what counts the most. Making the waist, and pretty much just the legs, primarily the waist and the ankles, I think, the strongest. So it can, like, if you want to add, because typically people like to do this, and make, like, give them, like, oversized weapons and, like, jetpacks and wings, and make sure the legs are good, and you have a nice, sturdy, large foot to add as a base to make this guy look a lot more solid. Before I move up to the upper torso and new video recording, let's talk about the most controversial thing. Well, actually, yeah, the most controversial thing with this version is that I made the colors a lot more contrasting. But, is this, where I made his abdomen basically just 3 lines. And it's not, you know, it's still sturdy. Like, there are 2 pistons, and there's this older slicer bit here. I'm going to try to see if I can focus in on that a little bit more. He's still got... Whoa, okay, I lied. Well, his waist can still move back and forth. There's a little bit of give on each side. And he can... Oh, I lied to you. They just fell off. So ignore the fact I'm a liar, and that it's still sturdy. Like, this bit's still sturdy as, like, a solid-looking torso. Do I want to fill this in? No, because I feel like having that gap in the abdomen made Shadowgear the way he looks now. Like, I think it's not iconic, but it's defining to his character. But, especially considering, like, these are light gray going to the body, and that's black going into this, and it kind of blends in these 2 contrasting colors, and I think that's one of the reasons I turned him black and gray. So that's a thing. So, let's move on to a different video recording. Yes, who's back, doing the torso. Which, will be a lot harder to pick out because this is primarily black with a little bit of silver and gray kind of mixed about, so if you can't pick out the finer details, I'm sorry. So here's the coolest gimmick I like with the torso, and I wish I added more of this into the final version, but I didn't. is that he's got little gear functions. You know, like if you move these gears around, everything these little bits move. Even these little tinier gears here can spin. Everything spins. Typically, I like to have the gears up here, the little nipple gears, kind of facing inward like this. That's typically how I prefer it. But the torso, I'm gonna do the magic thing where I bring this tripod up and then bring it down because this is a bigger guy. So yeah, that's it. I think there's some nice bits in here that add a bit of detail, like having these little cylindrical gears there. That kind of helps not fill it in, but add like this extra little bit, makes him look like he's wearing layers. And like these Borak teeth here, which are not, they're a little loose, but it helps break up the black. I think it looks really cool. Removing the head, you see a little bit more what's going on there. These shoulder bits, that this is part of what's holding it together, because the side of the body is, well, primarily the body is made of Borak skulls. The black framed Borak skulls, and everything is kind of worked around from that. The back of the torso. So yeah, that's a thing. Originally he had two smaller gears here, and then later on I added these larger ones. They don't spin. They're very, very solid. But I don't know. Again, the back does what it needs to do. I wish I added more detail. I guess if I had to skip ahead while I'm already looking at the back here, I wish I added more to these backs of these upper arms, but I didn't. And also, to a further extent, I guess what I'm going to talk about the arms is the pistons on the back of the arms. So, arms can move out, and they stay, they hold, and then you bring them forward. Perfect, like it does. The arms can't move back. And that's a thing that has bothered me with this version of Shadowgear for the longest time, is that his limbs can't move back. Like, his legs can't move back in the slightest. Like, no degree of motion. Like, his knees can bend, but his leg at the waist can't bend. And then his arms can't move back at all. So that does hinder his posability by a good margin. I mean, the poses you want him to do, he can definitely do. For what I want him to do. But, I don't know. Like, he just can't move his limbs back. And that's been a complaint of mine for years. And have I ever fixed it? Nope, I have not. But again, same thing with the waist, where this piston joint really does help the posability in the arm. Except when you add a certain giant axe in his hand, which I'll get to in a little bit. That's the torso, and that's the back of the arms. Let's talk about the front of the arms. Yeah, they're okay. This little bit can fold out if you want to have it fold out. I don't know. I think the arm's okay. Again, it gets the job done. Same goes for the lower arms. So from the elbow down, one simple little tiny connection, because this is back when I wanted to add the articulation to have like arms cross and whatever. So he can do poses like this, where his arms are crossed. You know, this is really a haphazard pose, but you get what I'm talking about. And so because the arms are kind of loose because of that, under the elbow, and that's a thing. And there's gear detail on the side here, and there's a panel here. Like, you can tell what it is. A cool little gimmick feature that I kept from the original version is that I made his arms have a little piston inside it, so you can stretch the arm. No real practicality to it at all, but again, it's a play function that I think is kind of cool. Then the hand. So here's the hand. It's gray. I figured, hey man, if I'm gonna keep the feet gunmetal, let's keep the hands gunmetal, aka dark gray. You can tell what's going on here. It's just a finger assembly, 2 fingers and a thumb. If I were to not remake, but like change stuff on this guy, I'm gonna keep the hands. I think the hands are fine. Now for the weapon. Oh, good old weapons. Let's talk about his axe. So if you're wondering why there was a jump cut there, my computer, my camera overheated, so I had to give it a little bit of time and let it cool down for a bit. So, the weapon, the axe, untouched since the first time I ever made it, way back in the day. Because you know what? It's not the best looking thing in the world, but I also never bothered to make it heavier, make it look beefier, because he can barely hold it. I mean, he can hold it perfectly fine. I mean, even if it's a half an axle connection, like right here. He can wrap his fingers around it, and he can hold it. Whoa, as soon as I say that. There we go. And he can hold the axe, like, he can do it, very, very nice, but like if he tries to hold it over his head, like it just starts flopping. And now it's starting to come loose. So typically in poses where I have the axe, it typically just stays under the arm. Right in a stock position where he looks like he just swung it and he's just holding it. So that's a thing. Lastly, the biggest detail, not detail, the most iconic thing about Shadowgear is the head, which I promptly took off. And I'm now putting back on. So there he is. There is Shadowgear's head. Oh my god, where'd you get the silver scroll shield? It's painted silver. Through time, it's gotten either dustier or more worn. Not the best paint job I ever did, but I think it works to the character. He's either worn and beat up, like I feel like this works for him. And the head is just, it's incredibly simple. This is from the first design I ever had of Shadowgear's head. Where, if you look at this long enough, you can tell what's what. For the longest time, very recently, I was debating on changing his eyes to the color white. And I didn't know how I felt about that. Maybe I still will, I don't know. But I think the red or white, well, like, it helps pop the color right from under the eye. And typically he has his head down. Why does he have this type of Shogun? Not Shogun, but like, Japanese type of like Raiden Mortal Kombat type of hat. I don't know. I think it looks cool. That's why I used it. And then subsequently, back in the day, people used it all the time. And that was the thing. But yeah, that is Shadowgear. That is the MOC. I need to zoom out so I can get him all in the frame. That's the big guy, man. This is one of the more famous MOCs I've ever made. And I still like him a lot. I still think, despite all the problems he has, if you just look at him, he just looks like a solid Titan to me. And I'm still really proud of the way he's built. So, that is Shadowgear. And then I'm Shadowgear. And then I'm going to say have a good day. And I'm going to stop this recording because I need to cool down this camera even more. Have a good day, everyone.